So, anyways, there's this thing that like it sounds like kind of a crazy thing, but there's a halakha. You know what I'm saying? But I haven't really learned this inside like so in depth. But it's a thing, people say it, where it's like you're not allowed to leave Israel only for three reasons. You're allowed to leave Israel if you can't make money in Israel and you have to make money. You're allowed to leave Israel if you can't find a teacher here and you want to learn. You're allowed to leave Israel if you're looking for like a spouse and you can't find. It's just,
Hmm.
but other than those things, once you come, you can't leave.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If you can't make money, and if you can't find a teacher or a spouse, it reminds me of there's a story in the Gemara, I believe, where it's talking about two of the sages are walking and they see another sage and they're like, oh, he's taking on Torah. You can tell because his countenance has changed. And it's not like it changed for the good. Like it's like, nah, he's struggling, he's going through it. It's like I always found that interesting. Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like that's how you can tell he took on Torah. Like it's not all, rainbows and unicorns, man. It's real life struggle. It's like you want to progress. And maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but I looked at it like if Torah isn't, if it was so easy, everybody would do it. Like everybody in the world, if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna have just wildly world success. Everybody be doing Torah. It's like, nah, that's not necessarily the case. Like the growth you're gonna go through, you gotta struggle for it.
That's a really good point. And then the thing is, on that point, I would say that it's less about the Torah than it is about leaving a perspective of life.
Mm.
Meaning that like for example, like say there's a guy, say XYZ guy, Steve, right? Steve, no, he's a high energy guy. You know what I mean? He's a high energy guy and he likes to chase women, right? Like that. He's into that, the hunt, the chase, the seduction, this, the whole thing, right? So he's into that. And that's like a big part of his like thing as a guy. Like Steve's a ladies' man, right? That's what they call him. Now the thing is, Steve is doing that. Everything that he's doing as it relates to chasing women is because there's an energy he's trying to connect to. Whether it's the energy of closeness, whether it's the energy of just maybe just raw physical pleasure, right? Whatever it is, there's these connections that he gets, and it's a connection to energy, right? And so keeps recreating this experience over and over and over again because he's connecting to energy, right? And so the change would be that he says, you know what? Instead of getting my energy in this way, I'm going to get my energy through the process of halacha. That's the perspective. Because a person could study Torah and know a lot about Torah, right? I've met these types of guys. They grow up in it, they come from very proficient families, the whole thing, but they still don't see the system of the Torah as the nourishment that they ultimately want. So the key is not the Torah. The key is, when I say key is not the Torah, the key is not saying the text. The key is seeing Torah as an expression of reality, right? The way the sun rises, the way the sun sets, the way the birds chirp, the way the wind blows, the way people talk, the way they move, all that's Torah, right? It's explained in fragments in different aspects, inside of the text, but ultimately it's that thing around it. So it's that dynamic of saying, well, where am I going to get my nourishment from? It's like you see guys, bro, these guys will be debating like all the way like on sports. Shalom, shalom. So they'll be debating all the time on sports, right? And it's like they'll be putting their heart in it, and this and that, and this and that, and this and
Yeah.
that. Shalom, shalom. And they'll be debating, but that energy that they're getting by expressing themselves and being right and all that, that's an external conversation. Meaning within it, there's no kedusha, right? Externally, is energy there, it's passion, it's this, it's external. But internal, it doesn't, there's nothing being created, right? So that same person could take that same motivation to like understand and argue and whatever, and say he put it in, say, Talmudic discussion. Now he would actually be creating something internally and externally, right? But the thing that he's creating externally is different than he created externally by the sports, because the sports is rooted in what? What is it? What does it have to do with? What is it? What does it do with creation? What does it do with your existence? What does it do with your neshama? What is it? How does it direct you to Hashem? Like, what does it do? It's entertaining. So that's like an external kind of like reality type of a thing, right? And so it's like our thing is, it's like no, our thing is internal. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go forward. We're just kind of like talking a little before you got here. Okay, so let's okay, so we're a couple days away. We're a couple days away, right? So we really want to kind of like think it out, like what's going on, preparing the house, getting rid of all the chametz, and some people go kind of like crazy with it. I've seen people go like really extreme with that whole idea, and I would just say like, hey, you know what, do what you can, and then as you'll see, you're going to say a blessing right before, at the end of cleaning, which is basically like, you all whatever chametz is there in the house is, you don't own it. You know what I mean? It's not yours anymore, right? So you have that as a thing, right? And so this whole thing is, it's a very interesting point, because you guys, the thing is, like, you guys have been doing Pesach. You guys have been reading books on Pesach, right? So this isn't like an introductory like conversation. It's not like, oh, okay, well, hey, this is what Pesach is, and this is what you need to have on your Seder plate. You guys have already did the Seder plate by yourself. You know what I mean? You don't need me to affirm that, right? What we're here to do is how to turn it into to spiritual technology, right? Because when we learn, say, Rav Ashlag in blessed memory, he talks about this idea of objective form, right? Which is what we project, right? Remember, we have substance, form of substance, objective form, and essence, right? So objective form is what we project onto something, right? And a lot of things we project on ourselves, is just not. It's just not reality, right? Like when we talk about like, okay, like, you know what? The next 20 years of my life, what can I accomplish? How can I affect the world? Right? How do I start to perceive my abilities to impact the world in a way that I never saw it before? Right? Rabbi Kiva, regular guy, living regular guy, nobody. This guy like cleaning up, this is like normal life, and then boom, a couple of things happen, and he starts learning about God at 40. Right? Abraham, Sarah, you know what I mean? We have so many levels to this conversation. So the thing is, it's like, how can I start imagining myself and my abilities in the way that God sees them? Right? Like, okay, I'm cool. Like, I can say, oh, I can vision myself. I'm humongous. I can visualize it. I can see it. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that God, the creator of the universe, has a plan for us. Right? That's why he gives us life every day, because we're supposed to contribute this particular thing. Okay, fine. So I want to know what it is. Right? I want to know what it is, and I want to do it. So what we're saying is this whole process that we're going on is levels upon levels of cleansing ourselves in different levels, in different aspects of ourselves, so we can ultimately reveal this point, right? So this aspect of Pesach, right, which is the idea of matzah, unleavened bread, right? And as you pointed out, you guys, The Rebbitzin said yesterday, this idea of it not being inflated, right? And not being puffed out, right? This is the ego. So this whole process is that we want to remove the ego, but what does that mean? Because some people be like, "Oh man, I don't got no ego." Hey man, this guy came up to me, he whacked me in the head, man. I didn't feel nothing. I was like, "Hey, I ain't got no ego. I don't feel nothing." Right? So that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, I know it was random, but I just had to do it. But the thing is, it's like this. What we're saying is, that concept of objective form is diminished, and I could see things for what they really are. I can really see the substance in the form of substance. The essence I will never understand is beyond logic, is beyond, but the form, the substance and the form of substance, meaning the vessel that exists in front of me, the true essence of that vessel, and the true aspect of what light can manifest from that vessel, that I can be clear on that with what I encounter about things in my life and about myself. I could be clear on it, right? Like how many times have we met people like, like I mean, I worked in entertainment business, right? And so, like, people marketing this whole thing, becomes it becomes a thing. You can see people like, whoa, that person in this camera angle with this thing with this, could really make an impact in this way, right? And you see people and you're like, wow, you don't know how beautiful you are. Or I've met so many people like in their careers, and you're like, God, this person doesn't realize they're about to blow up. Can't you see everything that's happening? They don't see it. You know what I mean? Recording artists I saw like in the moment, and you're just like, bro, you're about to blow up. And they're like worried about this and that and this. And it's like, they can't see it. I can see it. I'm a business guy. That's why I'm here? So the point is saying that there's a reality that's happening and there's a reality that we see. There's a potential, there's a job that we're supposed to do in this lifetime, and then there's a perception that we have about ourselves. And so this whole concept of Pesach and eating the matzah, right? And having the consciousness of the non-inflated self, right? The self at its truest of essence, right? The form and the form of substance. Not the inflated, just in itself, that in essence, I can focus my mind on removing aspects of this internal quality that limits me to make good decisions, which is called ego. This aspect that doesn't allow me to think about the full picture in my decision making, right? That aspect that says, like, you know what? I don't think that way. That's too big, man. This is who you are, man. Fall back. Why are you going crazy? Really breaking out of that. That's why the children are so important. The young people, they talking about it, things. So, anyways, okay, a couple of things I want to do. One, we definitely have to go into the Rabbi Sachs thing, right? But I do want to finish the Rob Berg thing, just because it's just one class and it's four of them, and we don't, obviously we're not going to be able to go through all four of them. But the point is just saying, like, I just want to finish it. It's only like 20 more minutes, and it's like, yeah, it's just good to, like, hey, we learned together, some of Rob Berg. Very nice. It's nice. And then we'll go into Rob Jonathan Sachs, right? And we're going to continue to push through the Haggadah. But the whole idea is just to say that, like, we don't know what the future holds for us, right? We don't know the impact that we're supposed to make in the world, right? We don't know what inner talents and gifts that need to come out at a high level. And so that's what we're trying to get to, right? It's not just about like, okay, hey, I'm pious, I'm serving God, look at me, hey, look at me, oh my God, I'm so holy. No, it's like saying like this is the energy that I need in a perspectives that needs to change in order for me to express my potential in this lifetime, right? Because I mean, God forbid that we go into the next world and Hashem shows us, hey, this is who you were supposed to be. You were supposed to help these people. This. You think, no, but I was this and I was that and this one. I know, but that was the beginning of the story. Oh no, I thought I was finished. I thought I did everything. No, that's your ego. I decide. The creator. I decide. Right? And so the point is just saying that the point is just saying that point is just saying like, so it's just having that consciousness in mind. It's like we just don't know our potential. We don't live in a society that perpetuates us to even think in that way, or to see ourselves in that way. And so, part of this idea of Pesach is saying like, hey, you know what? Um, maybe I need to really like reevaluate like who I think I am and what I'm capable of, because maybe there's a whole nother part of me that needs to expand itself spiritually, and now giving the opportunity and having the discussion, it makes perfect sense. And I want to go further. I want to go to higher levels. I want to see how far I can go. All right. So let's go with a little some rough berg. I just want to finish this off. It's just like and the thing about it is these are like such amazing ideas because you're hearing it, from someone who's so dear to me, one, and two, because it's love, it's love. And two, he's a master at this whole thing. I mean, this is a guy, more Zohars are all over the world because of him than maybe anyone on planet Earth history. So this is like a real massive level, right? And so, and the thing is, you learned from his teacher already, which is Rav Ashlag, right? So this is Rav Brandwein, as Otinel said, Brandwein's student, and Rav Ashlag, right? And so anyways, so the point is just saying, on that regard, is just saying that it's just a treat to do that before Pesach and this whole thing. But before we go in there, is there any questions, points, or anything? Okay.
We're ready.
All right, cool. All right, perfect. Brace up. Brace yourselves. No, I'm joking. Okay, fine. But okay, the point is just saying it's the key thing out of this whole study for this year, God willing, next year we'll be at a whole nother level of study and perspective. But the thing is, is saying like over right now, the whole thing is like Pesach is a way of life. When the season starts, we're in it. We're focused in it. We're going to go in it. We're digging in it. We're going in all the way. We're learning from the sages. We're learning from the sources. We're learning from contemporary people. We're learning from Kabbalists. We're learning halakha. This is a way of life, right? Pesach, Pesach, Pesach. And then we're going to go through Pesach. And then what happens next? We're in the 3 weeks. Every day is a study in the 3 weeks. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Wait, sorry. What am I talking about? 3 weeks. I said 3 weeks because I was just reading a sefer about the 3 weeks during Tammuz. Sorry, 7 weeks, right? Sorry, my bad. 7 weeks. We have 7 weeks of the counting of the Omer and the counting of the Omer, and so from there, it's a whole thing. So the studying doesn't stop because the thing is like this, as Rob Berg was saying in the last shir. Hey, the Israelites were at a totally impure state. And then they came into Pesach and they were totally purified. But even with that purification they received, they needed to go through a refinement process to even refine this light that they received. So this light that we receive on Pesach, we need to go through a process of 7 weeks, which is connected to what? The 7 sfirot, right? So Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. So we're going to go through each of those different weeks represents one of the sfirot, and then one of those sfirot is there to refine a different aspect of that kedusha that we bring down on Pesach. That's how big this light is, right? So, anyways, all right. So let's go ahead.
Can I say something on that point
Yeah,
real quick?
please.
So
Yeah, please, please.
It's interesting because like during the count of Omer, my father, blessed memory, that's when he passed away. So I have like I always had during the Omer, connected to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and having that my own personal thing for
Which
that.
day? Which day of the Omer?
I believe it's the 30. It's either the 32nd or it's the 33rd. I think it's the day before
Lag
Lag
BaOmer?
Omer. Yeah, I believe
Wow.
so. So, so when all this was happening, I was like, "Whoa!" Yeah, I remember, Rob. I reached out to you. Like, you're the first person I talked to, and it was like, "Whoa!" So I always knew that during this time, it was going to be a time of intense energy for me, and I need to transform it, the best way I could. So, just in a continuation of the conversation, like, once we get out of Pesach, it's like boom. The intensity of the light. I feel like Hashem allows things to happen in your life so you can connect to certain points. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that my father passed away for that reason, but it's like for my own personal journey, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm definitely locked in. You know what I mean? And it's like even my aunt, she passed away on the 8th day of Pesach 3 years ago. You know
Wow.
what I mean? So it's like I have these personal intense lights, but it's like, you know what? It's not to be it, it's always not to get long winded, but
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine.
I remember reading in a commentary that when Hashem sends down any like there's the heavenly tribunal, and if
Mm.
something seems bad, there's no objection at all. Send it to him, boom, good. So a lot of our blessings are disguised as what we'll say curses, but in reality they're not. It's just like Hashem's trying to get that to you, you know. So I always took that as it's not meant to be sad. It's really a blessing for you. It's not meant to be depressed. It's really a blessing for you. You just have to transform that energy. And you have the choice. You can say, okay, I'm gonna go this way, or you can go that way. And if you go that way, different levels, different heights that you could never imagine. Hashem gives you exactly what you need. But with our free choice, we have to digest it, appropriately. So that's all I was gonna say on that.
Yeah, no, very powerful. And we should do something for your dad's yard site on that day, especially being like heir of Lag BaOmer. So it's very powerful. So, we'll talk about it when we get there.
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Reverend.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Just when Otenos began to speak, it reminded me. I wanted to find out today is prophetess Miriam. Is it her yard site today? Of blessed
Is it?
memory.
It's the 10th, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah,
And so
so
I
it's
was
yeah, it's her yard site, Miriam Joe.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when he said that about his father. I was actually just kind of thinking about that on yesterday, even like with our daughter, just being more, just thinking about that time in a different frame, in a different mindset as I was going over the different information about Miriam. So I just wanted to add that little point.
Wait, is your daughter's yard site today?
No, hers is the second day of Sukkot.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember you mentioned that. I remember you mentioned that. That's very
Yes.
powerful too, as
But
well.
I just but it just made me think about just changing my mindset around her the time of her yard set, my daughter, as I was reading about Miriam, just reading about her and just kind of
Ah,
so I was making
exactly.
so when Otenel brought up about his father, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, it's that same thing that we have to really understand that, not saying that we, wanted our loved ones to pass on, but Hashem is in control, and so we have to take that energy and look at what he's trying to bring to us and in their merit. And it was just a lot that I was thinking about, and it just made me think about it even more as he was speaking.
So yeah, so that's a very important point. Okay, so what's one of the main? There's a few different points on this idea of yard site since we're talking about it, and maybe we should maybe light a candle if you want from Miriam. Because the Miriam thing is big, right? We learned just a few words about Miriam, right? Because that's the best way to connect to. Okay, so this is the thing. So this is one of the things I learned at the Kabbalah Center. This is like one of the first concepts, like not first concepts, but one of the major concepts. I was like, what? So the idea in the tradition of the Torah is that when a person leaves this world, that all the good, the energy that they created, all the good, all the mitzvahs that they did, that energy stays in this world, right? And so their body, goes into the ground, and then their soul ascends to a higher level. But that energy they created is in this world, right? And we can always connect to it. But on their death anniversary, there's a specific strength there. It's an additional power there with that energy. So when we celebrate someone's yard site, it's a chance to connect to the energy of that tzaddik or tzaddikus or or prophet or prophetess. It's a chance for us to connect to that light that they left in the world, right? So we light candles. We like I remember at the Kabbalah Center it was a really big deal. They were really into yard sites. It was like every day was a yard site, right? But because they're Kabbalists, they're into that. And so the thing is, right, Chief Rabbi Pinkhas is very much into it as well. But the thing is it's saying like, so doing things like if it's a yard site of a big Sadiq or a righteous person, we learn some of their Torah, right? We say words about that person. If it's somebody that we know, we get friends together. Like, hey, it's a yard site of my cousin. It's a yard site of my brother. Is this blah blah blah, and they bring people together, and we have l'chaim, and we talk, and we laugh, and we're just all in the merit of that person. That's on our side. On the other side, there's a higher levels of heaven that the people can ascend to in the heavens every year, right? They're at one levels of the heavens, they could go to another one. It just goes on and on and on, right? And so when we celebrate someone's yard site, we're giving additional testimony on their behalf from here, right? So we are actually pushing them to higher levels when we do a testimony on their behalf. It's like, the angels look down and be like, hey, Hashem, man, they reading Zohar on his name. They be like, what? Yeah, be like, yeah, man, he's reading Zohar, man. They out there doing mitzvahs, man. They sharing, they doing brachot, they all. He said, what? Oh man, elevate that brother. That whatever the connection is, right? So the point is just saying that that's the thing, and even the learning we're doing now, right? We have in mind all the people that came before us, all the people who supported us, because just the fact that we're learning, we don't realize it, but people we know who helped us throughout our life, they'll be able to go up and say, hey, you know what? I didn't teach this person any Torah, and I may not have did a lot of mitzvahs, but at this point in this person's life, I was a support, and that led to them becoming this person. And they can get a credit from you on that, right? And vice versa with you with other people as well. So it's just saying that the whole thing about the yard site is that when acknowledging, so a couple points on Miriam, actually just since we said this, I'm going to actually post the class that we did on Shemot, right? And if you remember, the class on Shemot was about all the different contributions that the women of that generation did, right? When we think about the Exodus, we think Moshe Rabbeinu, this, blah, 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 but it was the women, right? It was Miriam, it was Yocheved, it was Shifra and Pua, right? It was Sephora, right? It was Paro's daughter, all these different women played these integral parts at different moments for the whole thing to come to light, right? And that's a very important point, right? It's just like, because a lot of times in Western society, they say, oh, well, you know what? Women are in the background. They don't get any credit. It's a male-dominated society. It's not equal wages, all this type of stuff. But the woman's contribution it's not scalable, right? You can't scale, on a pay graph, like the value that a woman brings to the table, right? So Miriam, there's a couple points that we learned that were brought out specifically by Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Lord Jonathan Sachs, blessed memory. One of the things he said was, Miriam, really confronted her father on, divorcing the mother, and, really kind of like, basically she challenged his halakhic outlook on the Perils decree. He thought like, hey, don't bring kids into this world. We don't want to see more children getting killed, whatever. And so Miriam, at a young age, challenged her father, who was the head or chief rabbi of the Israelites in Egypt, right? That's what her father was. And she challenged his halakhic outlook. That's one level. As a child, as a young girl. The second point is when Moshe was put into the carriage or the teva, the in the stream, when Miriam was following the whole time down the road, down the river, right? She's following, and then when Moshe finally gets to Badia, right? She's immediately there and suggests that, hey, why don't you have a Hebrew mother nurse Moshe? Now, how did she know that? Why did she think that was like a thing? I don't know, but that just shows like what level she's at, right? So anyway, so this is the thing, and if you think about Miriam, you've got to think about Yocheved, the mother, like what type of mother gives birth to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam? You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Like that's just like that's the greatest prophet to ever live, and and the head high priest. All right, so anyway, so those are just some points, right? Just to go Miriam, but yeah, so we want to be able to do anything around that. Before we go into a little bit of Rob Burke, just to finish it off, any last points, anything? All right, let's get this party going.
Established restriction could never push away 50 gates. That intensity, there could be no desire who wants it. It would have been too strong. If they had reached the 50th gate of the desire to receive for oneself alone, they could never come to a realization that maybe I've got to push it away.
So it's the Kerem de Igulim saying, almost like saying, I have to save you, because otherwise it'll never be revealed.
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. They were pushed into it. They were pushed into it. Because that's free universe, you see? The cause did not reconcile itself with the effect. He was free. He pushed us out. Wait a second, didn't you say at the original Big Bang, look, you don't interfere with me. When I call you, you come. Here he came without their calling. Remember this important point. Or not, you didn't capture Pesach. You don't capture it. You don't remember this point.
That's why it's a free lunch.
It is a free lunch. You imagine you got a free universe right there, the free lunch. That's what Pesach is all about.
That's why people eat so much.
Just to dwell on the aspect of free lunch. Essentially bound up with the new age of quantum physics. You know,
Could be some technical issues on this.
not understand thoroughly the universe. Time when they... And so, a Haggadah, a far different universe, and that this cassette hopefully contains an entire erasure of the price that we have been brought back to pay for due to negative human activity on our part in a prior incarnation. So here you have it. Passover. The opportunity. Let's not miss it. But we must also remember that we need the software. By thinking, by knowing, we've established to this point the hardware, the disk, the hard disk that is now available. That's also an effort that we must make on Passover. Now the software, our connection to the hardware, was developed, refined, and established by the people who created what is called the Haggadah. Haggadah literally means talking. It talks. Why the necessity of talking? But for what has been explained at this point, I've been doing an awful lot of talking at this point. The reason for this talking, because it is to enlighten all of the people in our midst who may not be fully aware of the consequence and the purpose of this particular evening. And so, a Haggadah was created by which the software can be fully explained. Again, creating metaphysical software will seem very odd to most of you listening to this recording. Nevertheless, thought intelligence by most scientists seems to be about the only thing that is really energy. By thinking, by knowing, is going to be the way we're going to establish the software. So we've got to talk about it. And the more we talk about it, the more deeply we get into the thought, energy, intelligence of the Haggadah and all that is included within the software called the Haggadah will only intensify the effectiveness of this software. Or shall I put it another way? We broaden that software to the extent of our knowledge, of our understanding, how to create this software, because it's going to be the software that is vital in making the connection. It is the software that will permit us to tap this enormous energy that evolved on this particular night. In fact, only because the Jew at that time engaged in what might seem a very insignificant activity, the splashing of the blood on the 3 parts of the doorpost, that at that night was sufficient. And because that was sufficient, their software was established by which to make the connection to the extent that it was this action that was necessary, as we pointed out, the sanctification of the new moon. This control, this recognition of control, was the thought intelligence that was required so as to actually trigger and initiate the slaying of the firstborn. Without that recognition, no power on earth, that means no power that has been placed within the confines of our universe in a very limited way, could have created the Exodus. What was necessary was the manifestation of the light of the Ein Sof. And in so doing, that bond, that prison that was created by the master magicians of Egypt could be broken. The firstborn is only symbolic, as I explained in the Kabbalah connection, and therefore I don't want to delve into it. But this significance of breaking that bond, of Aviv, spring, bursting forth, permitting Aviv to become manifested on a physical level, is what this whole idea of Passover is all about. And because there is no disappearance in spirituality, in other words, metaphysical events, once they have occurred, remain in a steady state. Potential at times, but nevertheless in a steady state. And by our arousal, by our connection, when we establish the software, we have in fact planted the seed. The steady state of the hardware is like the seed before we plant it in earth. It is static, in spite of the fact that it's in a steady state, but it's only in a potential state. So is the objective on the night of Passover to tap that energy that will never again disappear because it was once established. And it's like a timetable, and as we said before, the Bible is our cosmic code, which also includes a timetable. When is that steady state potential energy, awesome energy, we might say, making its appearance, that those who know can make their proper connection? The timetable is the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. That's when we can take advantage because the program appears. However, by failing to turn on that television receiver, that program for us or for those who have failed to recognize the steady state potential of what happened a long time ago, that program is going to pass over them. So, in conclusion, we realize that there is no such thing as tradition or the family reunion, which is not something I wish to negate. I think it's wonderful. However, we must not lose sight of this very significant event that once took place and that takes place each year for us to take advantage of. Well, you might ask, what happens if I got this tape too late? Well, you can always make certain that next year Passover will not pass over you on another frequency, on another level. However, I would strongly urge the listener of this tape to make every effort to at least connect with those people, and if possible, even join with them in making this connection, in spite of the fact that maybe they feel they might be missing out a couple of the meditative principles that are required even for the hardware disc. And what happens if I never got around to getting tape number 2, which will be dealing with the software? Well, that's always brings me back to the old saying, when the individual is ready, the master will appear.
Wow. Wow, this is crazy. Okay. All right. So we're gonna get going with the little Rabbi Sachs, but okay. So just a couple reflections on just a couple points that were brought out by Rav Berg, blessed memory. So one idea he brought out that was very, very important when he was referring to the Haggadah and part of the technology to tap into this awesome power. And it was and he said it's through the discussion. and the deepening of the discussion and the conversation and that conversation and the intensity or the focus around it really it draws down a specific it draws down that light, and that light has a power to create a whole new frame of thinking for us, a whole new reality. And he's saying that that light that exists during the times of the Israelites existed before them and it exists now. Right? So every year we have the ability to tap into it. And through the situation of the Israelites, we have knowledge of actually what that technology was, like how it functioned, the whole thing. So he's really bringing out that point of just saying like, hey, he called it a free lunch, And if we are aware that that's what's coming down on that night, we could capture it. This is the purpose of us, learning out, right? Is to know that, like, what's going on that night, like what's happening in the universe, right? No, it's a specific light that we could connect to, a vibration, and it alters our frame of potential for ourselves and the world around us. That's what's on stake. And that's what he's saying. If you hear this beforehand, wow, you could think about this. You could sit there and say, free lunch. He used the example. He said, hey, all they did that first night was just put the blood on the doorpost. That acknowledgement was enough for them to get the free lunch. That's all it took. So there's no like, oh, this is the special perfect Seder. I did everything right. I didn't make any mistake. No. The acknowledgement of what it is. That's the connection. The acknowledgement that a new program for my thinking exists on this night and all the activities that I'm doing physically brings that into this reality. That's it. That's the connection. It's a free lunch. And that's what he's saying. Okay, it's very nice. The family comes together. Okay, it's cool. It's great. But let's understand if we all meditate and unify to the best of our abilities on that night, what could be accomplished? A whole new way of thinking. And you won't even know it. You won't even know it. You'll just be like, hey, I don't know. I'm just doing this now. I'm on a new thing. That's how it is. Like sometimes you have certain holidays you come out of it. You just say, I don't know. I'm just learning new stuff now. I don't know. Things are different. My walk is different. I can't explain it. But you've elevated, right? And people with you, they learn with you. Like, hey, man, since the holidays, man, you've been on fire. But hey, man, I'm on a new level, man. Right? People who meet you going forward, that'll just be the level they know you at. But they don't realize, no, I grew to this point. And the point that I was at before, I grew to reach that point, and on and on and on. Right? It's a constant level building. So those are just a couple of ideas to think about or bring up. Yeah, so it's a grind, it's a spiritual grind, and Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Hold on, let me. All right, let's go into our boy. So we're going to keep going with Rabbi Sachs, Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs in blessed memory. And, we're just going to go through it really quickly. So what is this concept of Kadash? It's the Kiddush, right? So we're starting off the evening with the Kiddush, and we're like, hey, we're sanctifying the day. This day right now is holy. There's a light force of the Creator that's coming down, encompassing the whole world. And by me saying Kiddush, I'm acknowledging that holiness that is of this day, right? And so, we do different things. Shabbat, we're not on Shabbat. And so the second part is what? Yarkas, right? Which is the washing of the hands. But guess what? It's Netilat Yadayim without a bracha, right? And why is that the case? Because we're starting the meal with karpas, which is what? the tears, the dripping, the taking the vegetable and dipping it into the salt water. If you're really hardcore, I guess some people hold by vinegar, right? And so we're going through the karpas, right? And that's why we wash our hands and we go through that process and there's the whole thing. We got a whole story about it. And then what do we do next? We take what do we have on our table? The matzah. And we take the three matzot, and what do? Boom, we take the middle piece, we break it in half. Right? And it's a whole thing, the whole afikomen, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we take the other half, and then what do? Wait, hold on. Well, I'm just looking at this really quickly. Hold on. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So we have the breaking of the matzah. We have the matzah sandwich. The whole thing, right? Right. The whole thing, right? And so and so from here, from here, we go into this idea of the telling of the story, right? And so we read about the first part and inviting strangers, the whole thing, let them eat, the whole thing. And next year in April, right? Yeah, whatever. So this is the story. So what is the story about? The story is about this concept of discussion, right? So the whole concept of this Haggadah, right? Which, the author who actually started the first Haggadah, it's a lot of discussion around it, whatever. But the point is saying the whole concept of the Haggadah is what the Rob Berg was talking about in terms of software, right? The hardware is the planet, the stars, the moons, the alignments, all these things, right? But the software is the Haggadah. It's the program that you put inside the hardware to make the whole thing activate. So this Haggadah that we're following is giving us the ability to manifest the thoughts, the ideas, and the consciousness to be able to bring down this powerful light. It's an instruction manual, right, on how to play the video game called Pesach, right? And so part of this video game is touching on these key elements. And if you touch on these key elements with the consciousness that I'm bringing down a new program into my consciousness, a new way of thinking, a new way of perceiving reality, a place of less ego, a place of natural humility, right? And all these elements, I'm going to leave out of this experience a different person, right? And it may even take me years to even realize how much I've changed. I'm telling you, people look at me or I see myself and I'm like I look back on my journey, it was just like, my journey is a series of Shabbosim, right? It's like every Shabbat I change a little bit. Every time, every Shabbat, whether it was in America, Israel, every Shabbat you go deeper and deeper in the rabbit's hole, right? And you continue to go, and you remove layers after layers after layers after layers, and next thing you know, hey, I'm in Jerusalem. Hey, yo, right? So that's what this thing is about, right? And so this power on Pesach is about that program. Who am I really? What am I supposed to really become? Okay, this was the first stage of my life. Okay, I did that with this, the family, all these things are amazing. So let's go and take everything that I built so far and use that as a mechanism of kedusha to go to my next level, right? And that's what we want to connect to. All right. So here's a part in the Haggadah that we say every year. Now that we're here, next year in Yerushalayim or Israel, fine. Next year in Israel. So it says like this: at this very moment, we gather and remember the past, and we speak about the future. And if you're familiar with the Haggadah, you remember these points. You know what I'm saying? He said the Seder brings together the three dimensions of time. Before the meal, we tell the story of redemption in the past. During the meal, we experience in the present. After the meal, as we conclude the Hallel, we say next year in Yerushalayim. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Next year, Yerushalayim rebuilt, and we look forward to the redemption in the future. What is distinctive about Jewish time is that we experience the present not as an isolated moment, but as a link in a chain connecting us to the past and the future. The very fact that we have been liberated in the days of Moses gave our ancestors the confidence that we'd be liberated again. And he says, and the Jewish people will return to the land of Israel. And here we see one of the most profound instincts of the Jewish mind. The memory is the guardian of hope. Those who have forgot the past become prisoners of the present. Those who remember the past have faith in the future. We could face it without fear because we have been there. So he says, now slaves, and next year we shall be free. These are all main points inside of the Haggadah, right? He said there are two words for freedom in Hebrew. For freedom, it says hashof and harut. Oh, sorry, hirut, right? I mean, sorry, hofes, sorry, hofes, I got it. Hofes is freedom from, hirut is freedom to. Hasof, hafos, hafos is what a slave acquires when released from slavery, or she is free from being subject to someone else's will. But this kind of liberation is not enough to create a free world. The world in which everyone is free to do what he or she likes begins with anarchy. I mean, it says, sorry, anarchy, and ends in tyranny. Anarchy ends in tyranny. He said, "Why is Hofes is only the destination? Hidrut is a collection, is a collective freedom, a society in which my freedom respects yours, and the freedom in the free society is always a moral achievement, and it rests on self restraint and regards for others. The ultimate aim for the Torah is to fashion a society on the foundation of justice and compassion, both of which depend on recognizing the sovereignty of God and the integrity of creation. Thus, we say next year we shall find a Bini Horim, invoking Hibrut and Nad Hofesh. The statement is of inspiration. May we be free, and may we be free in a way that honors the freedom of all. Okay, so these are great ideas. We're going through it. Magid, okay, we get it. The Magid, okay. So the four questions, the famous four questions, right? Okay, the famous four questions, right? You guys can all be saying it. Everyone who has kids, some of us have 10 of them, some of us have no children, their future children, everything we're acting out the night of Pesach, right? Because even if we don't have kids, we got to think about, hey, they're going to be sitting there soon. So it says the Torah speaks of children asking of questions of Pesach. What does it say? It says in Exodus, it says, if your children should ask you, what is the service, what is this service to you? You shall say. So that shows the kids are asking questions. From this, traditions infer that the story of the Exodus from Egypt must be told whenever possible. Whenever possible, response to the ask. The Exodus from Egypt must be told whenever possible in response to the question asked by a child. Now, it's interesting that if someone ever asks you, say, okay, so where do we learn that the kids ask questions on Pesach? So we get it from this verse, 12:26. Beautiful numbers, right? 12 signs of Zodiac, 26 Hashem's name. All right, so 12:26 Exodus, right? The children say this. He says the Torah has two words for inheritance, Yeshua and Nahala. So he says, and they represent two different ways which a heritage is passed on across generations. Nahala comes from the root Nahal, which means river. And he said it represents an inheritance is mere handed down without any work on the part of a recipient, as the water flows in the river. He says, Yishrush ha. What are these words, man? I need it in Hebrew. All right. He says, by contrast means active inheritance. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, one of my favorite rabbis, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, oh man, so genius, points out that he says la rish, a verbal form of Yerusha, Yerusha, okay, and sometimes means conquered or captive. He said it means actively taking hold of what one has been promised. An inheritance for which one has worked is always more secure than one for one which has not. He says he says that is why Judaism encourages children to ask questions. When a child asks or he or she has already begun to work of preparing to receive, the Torah is a Yerusha and not a Nahala. It needs to work on the behalf of the child, and it is not to be passed on across generations. All right, we could go into that. It's very deep idea. Okay, the other question: why is this night not like all the other nights? The history of Ma Nishtana is fascinating, right? He said the text itself, Ma Nishtana, right. So he says the text itself goes back some 2,000 years. It recorded it in the Mishnah and was almost certainly the form of words used in the Second Temple times. Everything else about it, though, was different. It was said not before the meal, but afterwards. It was said not by the children, but by the parents. And it was not set. It was not a set of questions, but a set of statements. How so? In the temple times, the meal was eaten fast. The sanctity of the moment was parable. And the families who traveled from all parts of Israel to bring their sacrifices to the temple and eat their meal in the precincts of Jerusalem. The question of children, the question of the child arose naturally from the acts, the acts done that night that were done at no other point of the year. He says, if the child was too young to ask, the father would prompt him by saying, Ma nishana halayla. He says, meaning not what makes this night different, but see how different this night is from all the other nights, which he would then enumerate the differences, encouraging the children to ask why. One of the most remarkable achievements of the sages was to preserve the continuity of Jewish family through the series of tragedies. The destruction of the temple, the end of the lamb sacrifice, the loss of the entire atmosphere of the collective celebration in Jerusalem. The narrative was moved from after the meal to before it, so that the words would not would the words would do the work of the place. The Jewish people no longer had Jerusalem, but we still had the story, and instead of the children asking spontaneously, each in his or own words, the four sons of the Haggadah, the Man Nishtana, became a standard formula that every child could learn. Old words took on a new function. A ritual once celebrated in the vicinity of the temple became a ceremony that could be observed through the world without losing its original character. Everywhere Jews gathered to celebrate the Pesach became a fragment in Jerusalem. The city, the land, the sacrificial order laid ruins, but the words remained. The one thing achieved by turning Manashana into a formula was that now there was no division of children into the wise and the wicked and the simple, and the child unable to speak. In a beautiful and deeply characteristic gesture, the custom obtained that every child should ask in the same way, using the same words, so not that to put any child to shame. And the children, he says, in all the Jewish children are precious, and we do not distinguish between them. Okay. Okay. All right. What makes the light? What makes this night different than all the other nights? He said the first. He said the four questions correspond to the four sons of the Haggadah. He said the wise child turns immediately to the central symbol of the Pesach, the matzah. His question is profound. The matzah is the bread of oppression, but Pesach is a festival of freedom. Why do we eat only the matzah? The wicked son asks about the ma'or because being bitter towards Judaism, he tastes only the bitterness of Jewish life, not the sweetness. He said, the simple natured child asked about the dipping, the act being done precisely to provoke a question on part of the child, and one who does not know how to ask why, how does not know how to ask people why they are reclining. This attention is not on the Seder service at all, but on the people gathered around the table. Okay, so he's continuing going with the Maggid. I mean, I don't want to skip things, but I mean, he's just going into the different details of this conversation. It's a lot, too. Hold on. So the four sons. I mean, it's important stuff. We got to do it, but he says, were we slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt? The Mishnah states that in the telling of the story of the Exodus, we must begin with the shame and the end of with praise. The Mishnah says in Pesachim. He said the Jewish story begins with sadness and ends with joy. What specifically does this mean on Pesach? He said the Talmud records two views according to Rav and Shmuel, two sages of the third century. According to Shmuel, it means saying we are slaves to the Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord of our God brought us out. According to Rav, it means saying in the beginning our ancestors were idol worshippers, but now the omnipresent has drawn us close to his service. Out of respect for both of these views, we say both of them beginning with the answers according to Shmuel. The two opinions reflect different approaches to the Exodus. According to Shmuel, the central fact is the physical redemption. Our ancestors were slaves and were deliberating by God. According to Ra, the essential theme is the spiritual redemption. Our ancestors were idolaters and were found that they were out both. So obviously it's both. And so he says, and there's a difference, but there is a difference too in their approaches in history. Shmuel discusses the immediate events of Egypt, slavery, and redemption. Ra places the event in a wider context. He says the whole history of the Jewish people from Abraham to Joshua and the consequence and the conquest of the land for Rav, Pesach is part of a larger dilemma. From founding fathers to birth of a nation of its own land. Maimonides draws a third distinction that there's two elements of the Seder service. There's the story we tell the children, the story we tell ourselves. Shmuel focuses on the story as it's told to the children. Rob speaks on the story as an adult reflection. Children can children can understand the drama of the slavery and the freedom together with many miracles that were involved. To take to take an adult to understand the journey from polyism to monotheism, from myth to faith. Okay, okay. This is a long one. I'm not trying to skip things, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, we got to cover ground. You know what I mean? And I'm saying these points are points. All these statements that they're saying, these are different sections in the Haggadah of the story. This is what we're going to be reading. So he's giving explanations to these things. So you could refer back later today if you have a Haggadah at your house, or you have one, or you can look at one online, and you can go over these points. Okay, but I just want to cover ground. Here's the I guess the second part of the Maggid, right, which is the four sons, right. So we started off with all the statements of the Maggid, right? Like, I mean, with the story, we went through the different parts. People need to be fed. This he breaks the story up into different parts, right? So now we're on the aspect of the four sons. Okay. All right. So we're just going to go briefly into it. Okay. So the four sons, which is another part of the story you guys are all familiar with. This famous passage is based on the fact that the Torah speaks about four places about the dialogue between parents and children. He says, one, if your children should ask you, what is the right you perform? You say, it is Pesach, offering the Lord. He passed over the houses of the children of Egypt while he struck the Egyptians, but saved those in our house. He says, and you shall tell your children on that day because of what the Lord did for me, and I went to Egypt. He says three. He says what he's giving like dialogue with the children, and then it says if your child should ask you what is this, you should say to them, the strong hand of the Lord pulled us out of Egypt from the grip of the slavery. And he says, and he says, when it is time to come, your children shall ask you, what are the testimonies, the status of the laws of the Lord that commanded you? He says, you shall say your children were the slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord has brought us out of the land with a strong hand. He says like this: rather than seeing them as restraints of see them as restatements of the same idea. The sages detected in different ways that the verse is our phrases for distinctive personalities for thus different kinds of children. Okay, so this is how we. Okay, this is beautiful. I did that actually. So he says, so how do we get to this idea of the four sons? Right, the four different types of sons. He's saying the four sons comes from four pasukim that discuss that are in Exodus that discuss the communication between parents and son. And so he says from that basis, the sages derive in the Haggadah this basis of four types of sons, because that's what they got. It may be that four sons are not different people, but successive stages in development of a child. We begin by being unable to ask. We accept the world as given. The next stage in intellectual growth is curiosity, the child with a simple nature. We ask questions without no ulterior motive. We simply want to learn. It is often allowed by a period of testing and challenging the values we receive, the wicked children or the adolescent. The Hebrew word for adolescent, na'ar, also means to shake off. Teenage years are one where we develop our own identity by putting received values to the test, but this can sometimes lead to rebellion as a form of self-exploration. The accumulation of cognitive growth is wisdom, the point at which we have internalized the value of our heritage, and we are sufficiently mature to see their objective merits. Although Haggadah uses the word wise, rabbinic tradition prefers the phrase Talmid Chacham, the wise discipline. Wisdom in Judaism is not a state, but a process of constant learning. That is why it lies as much in the questions one asks as in the answer. Every answer in itself is a prelude to a deeper conversation, and thus there is a constant growth that we move to new levels of understanding. Okay, so from this standpoint, so here are the four sons, right? So we get a comprehensive idea on these four sons. You know, we have the four sons, the structure of the four sons. One may ask, who wants to? He says one may wait. Did we just read this? Okay. He says, okay, the four sons. He said the four sons are a vintage of the Jewish people. He said one asked because he wants to hear the answer. The second asked because he does not want he does not want the answer. The third one asked because he does not understand, and the fourth one does not ask because he doesn't understand that he doesn't understand. Ours has never been more monolithic. Ours has never been we have never been a monolithic people yet. Yet there is a message of hope in this family portrait. Though they disagree and sit around at the same table telling you the same story, though they differ, they stay together. That's nice. He says, and they are part of a single family, and even the rebellion is there, even the rebel is there, although part of him does not want to be. This too is who we are. The Jewish people are an extended family. We argue, we differ, and sometimes we are deeply divided, yet we are part of the same story, and we share the same memories. In difficult times, we can count on one another. We feel each other's pain out of municipality of voices come together. Sometimes none of us could achieve together. Sitting next to the wise child, the rebels is not the rebel is not fated to remind a rebel. Understand that? He said, sitting next to the rebel, the rebellious, sitting next to the rebel, the wise child may share his wisdom rather than keep it to himself. And one who cannot ask will learn will in time learn how. And the simple child will learn complexity, and the wise child will learn simplicity, which it draws strength from each other. And as we draw strength from each other, from belonging to a people. Okay, anyway, so he goes into the different sons, okay? The wise son, he's going into it, it's very deep. The wicked son is right in front of us, it's very deep, and we can't do everything. We got to fly through it. So he says, all right, so he's on the fifth son now. I'm just looking to see where he stopped off with the sons at. Okay. Okay, so we went through the sons. Please, you could go back and look it through. I just wanted to save time on it. He says, one who does not know how to ask must open up for him. He said, what is significant of this phrase is that you must open for him, as it is said that the Rebbe Menachem Mendel of Coates once asked his discipline, where does God live? His discipline was perplexed. What does the Rebbe mean? Where does God live? Where does God not live? Surely we have been taught that there's no place is devoid of his presence. He fills the heavens and the earth. The Rebbe replied, "You have not you do not under you have not understood. God lives where we let him in." On other occasions, he asked, "Why does it say in the Shema these words shall be on your heart?" On and on why on and not in? He answered. He says the heart is not always open. Therefore, the Torah says, "Lay these words on your heart, so that when your heart opens, they will be there, ready to fall in." He says, in Judaism, spiritually means openness. To one who is open, God is closer than we are to ourselves. One who is closed, he is further away most than the most distant galaxies. The task of education is to teach a child to be open to the voice of God, and the miracle of existence. And the question asked with sincerity is an opening of the soul. Okay, so so he's going into this. We're in a Maggid. We're going to different parts. We're out of the five sons. We're in like more general discussions about it, right? And he talks about it's different parts of Maggid. It's a lot of things in the Maggid. We're there. Okay, maybe we should have started exactly after Purim and went all the way through. But hey, this is what God wanted. Okay, so we got to continue on. We're still in Maggid. I'm just going through these parts because these are parts that you can look up, you can come back to, and they're basically outlining different parts of the story, right? Right? We want to go through it. Wow, more Maggid. It just keeps going, keeps going. The Maggid doesn't stop. And he's bringing other commentaries too. Vilna Gaon, I see, different people. All right, very good. Well, Maggid, section 7, section 10. Maggid, Ikra. So as you can see, the Maggid is very long. Maggid, 13, 14. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah. All right, fine. Hashem is saying, you know what? If you really want to tackle Purim with the students, you really got to start right after Pesach. You know what I mean? I mean, right after Purim. Right after Purim. We're good though. You guys are advanced, so it's not like we're not like introducing the concepts. We're just getting meaning, deeper concepts. So you see, we're going through the plagues and all these things, and you put the blood pieces. All these things are the Maggid. The key thing is just follow the Maggid. That's all you got. I mean, follow the Haggadah. All you got to do is trust the Haggadah. It'll tell you exactly what to do. You guys have been doing Pesach for years, but it just continuously is just going through it, right? Okay, so
Hey, Rob, if I can say something real quick.
yeah.
You know, Rabbi Berg in blessed memory, he kind of laid it out for us though. As long as you're trying, you're good. He already got it. You know what I mean? Like we get better every single year. We gain more. We get this, but as long as you're there, you already won. You know what I mean? So it's all good.
You're right.
It's all
You're right.
good. We're
You're right.
exactly where we supposed to be at. And we're getting, if we were doing it on a certain level, maybe the vessel isn't there yet. But next year, Baruch Hashem, it will be. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that you've helped me really understand. I had asked you a question a few weeks ago. I was like, man, Rob, how does the redemption even happen? Like, I don't see how it's gonna be this. He was like, hey, it's already there. You've already won. Just take the necessary steps. Do what you need to do to progress to that place that's already created. The success is already there. Now it's just getting there. So Baruch Hashem. I just wanted to say that real quick.
No, amazing, amazing. No, you're right. And it's like, so there's a part inside of, there's a recounting of the 10 plagues, right? And so it says like this. So Rabbi Yehuda grouped the plagues into three parts because with and what you said, Otio is 100% right, is what you said was, with the profound part that you brought up, the Rav said was like, that's the level they were at in Mitzrayim, right? And doing just the acknowledgement of Pesach and this awesome power from God was enough to give them a new program. So it's the same thing that exists by us as well. So there's just constant progression. On this point, right? On this point, even though we know that, we want to give it all in preparation, right? We know Hashem has a free lunch for us. He knows that we're there. But even with that and knowing that, we want to earn every bit of what he's giving us. And that really enforces the vessel. So he says, Rav Yehuda, he says, groups the plagues into three. He said, because with the exception of the last, they occurred in threefold patterns. The first three were performed by Aaron, the second three by Moses, and the third three by Moses, stretching out his hand. In each of the groups, the first was preceded by the warning in the morning, and the second by a warning whose time is not specified. And the third came without warning. He said, a custom is to spill three drops of wine at the word blood, fire, and pillar of the smoke. He says, at the mention of each of the plagues. He says, the three words of Rav Yehuda, micromanic. He says, always. He says many explanations have been offered. He says the most beautiful is Abdu Ham, Abdu Ham. He said who interpreted is in accordance with the verse in Proverbs. Do not rejoice when your enemies fall. He says, even as we give thanks to the miracle of the plagues, as a result of which our ancestors gained their freedom, we also shed a symbolic tear for those who suffer. According to some commentators, that is why the Torah does not mention the word Simcha, rejoicing, in connection with Pesach, unlike other festivals. That's interesting. A Talmud passage in Megillah states that when the water of the sea returned and trapped the pursuing Egyptians in the water, the angels wished to sing a song of praise, but God silenced them with the words of, "My creatures are drowning in the sea." and you wish to sing a song. He says, God does not rejoice in the downfall of the wicked. That's an interesting point. He said, moral maturity involves an ability to live with complex situations and emotions. We may be uplifted by an event because it represents the triumphant of justice, while at the same time identifying with the suffering of victims. One of the glories of Judaism is that it reflects on the complexity of moral life without retreating into skepticism or relativism. And he says a hero of the Torah, the heroes of the Torah are rarely without fault, nor are the victims wholly without virtue. He said this does not prevent us from making moral judgments any more than a gray future of existence of black and white, but it should protect us against the kind of attitude that drew up among the sectarians of the Dead Sea Scrolls, who divided humanity into the children of the light and the children of darkness. Judaism forbids. I don't know what this word is. Saku, I don't know. Sounds German. Or malicious. He says, or malicious joy in the discomfort of others. And he says,
Yeah,
what's the word?
that looks like a German word.
Yeah, I think it is. It's Yiddish. It's Yiddish. Anyways, all right. So,
Yeah, hate it for thee.
say it for the no, it's definitely a German word. I mean, you can look it up if you want, but he says it was the first faith in history to teach that unity of mankind under the universal fatherhood of God, tears, and therefore are a universal language, and sympathy should know no religion or national borders. Okay. All right, so he's going more into the Maggid. He's bringing these different points of the Maggid. I just want to read those because the blood part's a big deal in the whole thing. Let's just continue on. Okay, so Dayenu, right, which is a whole nother part. Okay, so let's stop at Dayenu. Let's stop at Dayenu. Um, I don't know if you guys are around this evening, but if you guys want to do 20 or 21 o'clock, we could just come. I really want to finish this off. We go Thursday. You know what I mean? So if you guys are around, I'm gonna do a share. At 20, probably like 21 o'clock, and you guys could just listen in whatever while you're doing whatever you're doing. But I just want to just get as much through as we can. You guys up for that?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Right.
perfect. Okay, so we'll continue on at 21 o'clock. So 16 hours, so we got like 4 hours, whatever. And we'll continue on and we'll just finish. Hey, we're grinding. This is it. We got to do it. So anyways, we go ahead.
Hey,
Continue.
Rob, I was gonna tell you, you don't have to ask me. Just send me all the links. If you learn at whatever time, just send it to me. Like I'm good. I'm locked in. I'm trying to be as locked in as I can be.
Yeah,
So,
same here.
yeah, it
Same
don't
here.
matter. Just send them. You ain't gotta ask.
All right, perfect. All right, so we're on it. Okay, so all right, B'vat Hashem this evening, and we'll keep pushing it. But the key thing is we want to send a special shout outs to Miriam, the high priestess, and we should all be blessed in her merit and in all the holiness that she brought in the world. We should all be rewarded for that. And to all the women, Bas Israel of Israel, may you also gain strength from Miriam, the high priestess.